Good morning and welcome back to Commercial Radio. So we're still busy with Chapter 10 with buying, selling and executing airtime. And today we're going to be looking at Part 8 and Part 9. Okay, so this is Lecture 25 and Lecture 26 combined. And what we'll be doing is we'll be going through the RAB Guide to Writing Great Radio Copy. Because previously in the previous two lessons, we looked at design thinking. So we looked at how to start with the whole process of scripting an ad. And it started with doing the research on the specific products and then putting the ad together. So doing the script, or rather, and then doing the scripting side of it, and then doing the scripting and then re-looking and making sure that everything is according to what the client wanted, okay? So now we need to see how we'll do the scripting part of it. How is it that you write a copy? Because it's not as simple as simply sitting and putting a couple of words on paper, okay? So this is not in your textbook, the section that we're looking at today. If you want to follow along, there's an online link that you can simply open up here. So you'll see we've given you the link which you can simply copy and paste in your browser, and it'll take you to where we are today. Right, so developing a great creative radio campaign is crucial to getting results for your client. But the big question is, how do you do it? And that's where we're going to start. So what we're going to work through is a 10-step plan that will help you by guiding you through the challenges, the demands, and the pitfalls of the copywriting process. Don't be afraid to use radio's creative potential to the fullest and to take the time needed to create great sounding and brilliant campaigns, okay? This is one of those things that will come with practice. It's something you need to practice, which is why we're going through it now, because you still have a lot of time to practice it. So the first step, find out what the client wants. Think back to design thinking. We had a similar starting point within design thinking. Obviously, you can't simply start if you don't know what it is that you will be doing. And I know it sounds very simple and obvious, but so many stations and so many agencies make the mistake of not listening to what their clients really want and hope to achieve with their campaign. Okay, you need to listen because this is their campaign. And without understanding the real reasons behind why a potential client wants to go on the air, the commercial campaign, no matter how humorous or how clever that campaign is doomed because you haven't listened to what it is that they wanted. So that is the first step. From there, we move on to step 2, ask the right questions. So to find out what the client wants, you have to ask a couple of questions. Some people call it a client needs analysis. And even though this isn't the most exciting part of the creative process, it's crucial to your success. Again, think of the design thinking process, part of the first question, the what is question with the research and with everything that they want. This is part of that, okay? And here are some examples. Is there anything you would like to feature? Maybe your clients just got a huge load of widgets and they need to sell them fast. Or maybe a certain item has a higher profit margin and it would make sense to push that specific product. You can also ask, who is your best prospect? This question will allow you to get into demographics and find out who they are targeting. Is it a male or a female? Is it both? What percentage? What is the average age of the person that they're targeting? What is their income? What is their profession and education level? If you represent more than one station, then these questions can help steer your client to the right position on the dial. So this can help your client to see where they will fit in best in which of your radio stations that you are representing. You can also ask, why do customers come to you? Why this specific client? This question and a couple of other questions that are similar allow your client to tell you their story. Keep in mind that perception is reality, and you should consider getting different viewpoints from coworkers, families, and friends, okay? So talk to different people, interview different people with regards to this specific client to see why it is that people utilize the specific product or service. Again, think of design thinking. You can see how the two are linked, eh? Then the next question, what is your single greatest competitive advantage? So what sets you apart from the rest? Do you have a positioning statement? What do you feel is your unique selling position? What is your unique selling point? Okay, it's also called the USP. And this is a marketing concept that allows a company to differentiate themselves from their competition. It's really important, and every company has one. Okay, it's part of their marketing strategy. What is your primary business image? And then lastly, what is the biggest misperception you feel people have about your business? Sometimes this misperception can be used in the commercial to help overcome objectives. Let's say, for instance, customers might think a popular brand will automatically be too expensive for them, so out of their price range. Or perhaps potential customers feel like the location is too far away, when in reality it's only 10 to 15 minutes away. Okay, so it's all these misperceptions that people might have that you need to break, in essence. Step 3, help position your client. Most clients on local radio expect a measurable response from their investment on your station. Whether it's an increase in phone calls, more traffic to their store, or simply more hits on their website, advertisers want something to happen. They're paying you, so something needs to happen, okay? So you need to create an ad that will have an effect. Now that you've already done your client needs analysis, use that information to effectively help your clients separate themselves from the competition with proper positioning. Very important. You need to know your competition. So who truly competes for your client's business? There may be a couple of different women's shoe stores in town, but if each is targeted to a different group of customers, so let's say teens or a discount store or more upscale shoe store, then except for some minor overlapping, you can say that they are non-competitive in this specific instance. If, however, there are 3 athletic shoe stores and each carry the same brand of shoes, then all 3 compete directly with one another. So then that is your competition. Write down each competitor and a list of their perceived strengths or selling points. It could be things like discounts or their competitive prices. It could be excellent service that they offer. It could be superior quality or a variety of goods. It could be convenient location or convenient shopping hours, etc. Okay, and then know yourself. Apply the same criteria when evaluating the perceived position and strengths of your client, just as you did for your competitors. So the same thing that you just did with them to try and find their selling points, you need to do with your client. Remember that it may be difficult to get an accurate description of the perceived position of your client from your client. So again, it's important that you talk to different people, so friends and family and co-workers, to get this perceived position. So do an informal survey with your friends, with your family and co-workers. Try to get a good sense of how the client is already received by customers to help you determine how you can change or enhance that image. So go and talk to customers if you can, okay? Find out what the perception is. And then number 3 there, define the differences. Most successful products or stores have established a very definite, easily explained and easily recognized position in the marketplace. By writing down crucial differences between competitors, you can arrive at a focal point for an ad. After all, sometimes it's the little differences that can make a person choose one store, one product over another. Think about yourself as a customer. Why is it that you'll choose one store above another? What is the big differentiation? Is it about Is it with regards to ease? A lot of people choose things because it's easier to go with that one. Is it because you trust a certain service because you've used it before? Is it because you get better value by using a specific store? Is it better goods? Whatever it might be, okay? So write down the crucial differences between the competitors. Step 4, getting it all together. So we've seen again in the previous lesson that there are different style categories of ads or commercials. We looked at quite a few of them in the design thinking phase. So get creative by varying the elements and determining what works best for the advertiser. Don't get bogged down by always using one simple style for your client, okay? So do try using the different ones. The first one there is the straightforward one. So sometimes the simplest approach works best. Imagine one effective voice delivering a well-written narrative message. This direct approach works particularly well when a positive image has previously been established and a specific event is being promoted, like a sale. In these kind of cases, you can simply expand on or enhance the positive feelings that have already been put in place. Okay, so you don't have to do something brand new. You can simply go with what has been done. Number 2, music. Use the music in commercials. The use of music in commercials can be powerful since music can evoke an emotional response and create a positive feeling that transfers to the product or the service. Think about when you listen to music. Sometimes you listen to songs because you want to be in a happy mood, so they make you feel happy. Other times you listen to songs because they'll make you feel sad. Okay, so different types of music can evoke different emotional responses from us. Music can also be used to tie together a mixed media campaign, whether it's TV or internet, while aiding in recall. Music also means jingles, and when done right, jingles can cut through all the clutter in the mind for years. So if I come up with a really great jingle, years down the line, you can still recall where that jingle came from. Remember that copyrighted music that plays on your station may not be used for a recorded commercial for your client unless they pay the publisher for the rights to use that music. That means even though that specific client would love to use whatever the song is, a specific song, as an intro to their spot, they need to acquire the rights to that song before the commercial airs, okay? You can find more information on about this on bmi.com. But it's really, really important to realize that if you work for a radio station, you can't simply take any song that you want and simply source an instrumental part of it for your ad. Okay, you need to get permission first. Number 3 here, slice of life. So the slice of life approach allows the audience to relate personally to the commercial elements. Overhearing bits of real life conversation, whether it's between lovers or spouses or parents or neighbors, make the potential customers an active, albeit silent, participant instead of simply a passive listener. Active listeners participate. Passive listeners will also participate, but they'll participate on their own. So they'll play along with something on their own. They won't actively participate. Okay. If the actors in the spot strike a responsive chord, the listener is much more apt to be open to the client's offering. Okay. So if you do something in your ad that speaks to me, I'll be more open to perhaps buying into what it is that you are trying to sell me. The major drawback, though, in writing and producing slice of life spots is that they must be done extremely well to be effective. Talent must be believable and likable, or you lose credibility with the listener. Poorly written dialogue or a wooden delivery will turn off the audience and have them reaching for the dial. In other words, switching off the station. So slice of life very important, really can do very well if done correctly, allowing the audience to relate personally to the commercial elements. Number 4, humor. So humor engages the listener. It creates an emotional response and it provides entertainment. But there are pitfalls in trying to be funny. Have you ever heard a really funny commercial that you've enjoyed, and when you went to tell a friend about it, you couldn't remember the product being advertised? Remember to make humor part of the selling point, okay? You don't want the ad to differentiate from your product. Also, something that might be funny to you may not be funny to your target audience. My kind of humor is completely different to my friends' types of humor, okay? They love slapstick comedy. I am not a fan at all. There's other types of humor that I'm more interested in. So try to stick to universal situations that revolve around family or around intimate relationships, because these problems have the same kind of human elements, okay? We can relate to them. Don't be afraid to exaggerate for comic effect. A precise, true-to-life retelling may not be that funny, but exaggeration can make people laugh and identify with the situation. And then testimonial, number 5 there. The testimonial can be very effective in persuading a customer to try a new product or a new service. Affirmation by other customers can be a convincing argument, and radio is the best media for word-of-mouth advertising. Testimonials are fairly easy to produce, but make sure that you get your talent to relax and to take their time in telling you about their experience. Otherwise, it might come across as stiff and as inauthentic. Also, remember that a testimonial from a personality on your station is a premium spot and should always cost extra to the client. Why? Because it's also seen as a power spot. So it's seen as an endorsement, and endorsements cost more. Step 5, overcoming writer's block. It's every writer's nightmare and every deadline's biggest obstacle. But there are several techniques that you can employ to overcome this looming monster, okay? You can overcome writer's block. In fact, one of the first things that you can do is to go back to step 1 and to do your homework. Ask the right questions, find out what the client wants, needs, etc. So if we go back here to number 1, number 1 says, find out what the client wants. You need to find out what the client wants before you can move on. Okay, and you do this by asking the correct questions, by doing your client needs analysis. The spot or the commercial or the ad could possibly write itself once you're done. However, for those times when you can't get out of this, for those times when you just simply can't get started, you just can't get out of the starting gate, Jeffrey Hedquist from Hedquist Productions offer these tips and tricks. So we've looked at some of the things that Jeffrey Hedquist has said before. So firstly, what he says is, he speaks about sound effects. Randomly choose a sound effect from the production library and give yourself 2 minutes to write a commercial for your client using that effect, even if it doesn't seem appropriate. Try another and then do it again. Limber up your imagination and make connections between ideas that might not seem related at first. If you don't have commercial gold at this point, purposely choose a sound effect that would not normally be associated with the advertiser. So for example, if the client sells office products, don't go with keyboard clicking or copy machine humming. Try something different, like a fire engine or a baby crying. Then, working with a 2-minute deadline, force yourself to come up with some copy using that specific sound effect. Once again, your mind will stretch to connect those two disparate parts of the equation and start stringing words and ideas together to bridge that gap. Our minds are quite powerful. If you work at it, a commercial will emerge, usually built around an analogy or a metaphor. If you work at it, a commercial will emerge, usually built around an analogy or a metaphor. For example, the sound of a baby crying can represent the way we all turn into an out-of-control baby when the office equipment doesn't work and we can't fix it. Or the fire engine could be an example of what it's like when emergencies arise at the office. Sound effects can quickly communicate and reinforce problems and solutions and create a shortcut to the mind of your audience. Number 2 from Jeffrey Hedquist, silence is golden. Don't overlook the power of silence and quieter sounds. Silence can grab your attention and serve as a powerful contrast to bombastic sound effects. It can be used to highlight a solution or to relieve tension. Step 6, get down to basics. Follow these copywriting tips. So here are a basic list of tips to get you started. Number 1, the goal. Start by writing down the goal and one main point you want to get across. This step will be a huge help in deciding how you will create the commercial and what form or style it will take. Number 2, elements. Next, write down the elements or information that must be in the ad. So, for example, the store name, their address, whether it's physical or their website address, an image to convey, description of what they're selling, their benefits to the consumer. Number 3, the approach. Decide on how your main points and information will be communicated. How will it be strung together into a coherent work of creative art? Number 4, the opening. Grab their attention or lose them forever. Entertain, enlighten, amuse, or cause anticipation. Don't tempt the listener to tune out, okay? So this is where the hook comes in, that first 7 seconds, 7 to 14 seconds, so first sentence or two that you have to hook them in, which is more important, which is the most important section of your ad, okay? Because if you can't hook them, chances are they're not going to listen to the rest of your ad, so you've lost them. Okay, so you need to grab their attention or lose them, one of the two. Number 5, simplicity. Don't use extremely complex language. Keep your dialogue conversational, not stilted. Write for the ear, not for the eye. Okay, read the copy out loud. Focus on this because a lot of people tend to put too much emphasis on their language, making it too complex. And remember, we're passive listeners, most of us. So we listen with half an ear because we're doing other things at the same time. If you put too much into this ad, I'm not going to pick up what it is that you're selling, okay? You're going to lose me. So simplicity, don't use extremely complex language and keep it conversational. Number 6 there, clarity. At the end of the ad, your audience will understand exactly what you've tried to say. That is what it needs to come down to. So don't be overly clever or you might lose your clarity. Limit the big idea to 1 per spot, 1 thought per spot, 1 thought per ad. That's it. Use active language. So stay away from passive verbs. If you want people to act on your ad, choose action words. Number 8 there, credibility, extremely important. Listeners tend to follow your advice when they believe you, when they trust you, when they identify with the circumstances presented in your ad, okay? So they need to trust you and they need to find it relatable. Write in a realistic manner, unless you're employing exaggeration or fantasy. Keep the voices credible and the talent believable. Number 9, product mention. There's no rule concerning how many times the client's name must be mentioned. Make the spot and the selling process memorable, okay? So make sure that it's memorable at the end of the day. And then number 10, editing. You have a limited amount of time. So usually 60 seconds max, but the average would be 30 seconds. So write the copy and then edit it once, deleting all your unnecessary words. Then go through it again and edit even more tightly. An economy of words is essential in the commercial. Okay, I think you'll see you'll come down to about 90 words, give or take, for a 30-second ad. And that's not a lot. Okay, it's not a lot of time to convey a brilliant message about a product or a service. So you write and you rewrite and you take out words that are not needed. You find shorter words if there's other ways of saying it. Find visual ways of saying something. Find emotional ways of saying something, all right? So editing is really important. Number 11, group efforts. Get a group together and try some brainstorming. Brainstorming works so well, especially because you get two types of people. You get the reactor and you get the generator. So coming up with ideas, normally a generator's concept. And then a reactor can take this idea and just make it bigger and bolder and better used. Okay, so if you have a couple of reactors together with your generator, together with your initial concept, you can only come up with greater content. So even useless ideas can spur successful attempts. It doesn't matter what it is. When it comes to brainstorming, there's no such thing as something that's wrong, because every idea could lead to a different idea. Group thought can overcome any writer's block. Another good checklist you can go through includes defining the advertising objective, so the goal of the campaign. Define the commercial objective, the goal of the ad. State specific benefits. What is in it for the customer? Why should I buy your product or service? Make a specific offer. To get measurable results, focus on one offer. Issue a call to action. So explain how or when to take advantage of the offer. Support material. So extra details needed about the product or about the client. And then lastly, their closure. So tie up any loose ends and include a strong last impression. Step 7, make sure your masterpiece passes this test. Before you do a final production of the work of art that you've just produced, run through this checklist of copywriting deadly sins provided by creative consultant Dan O'Day. Sin number 1, do you fail to attract the listener's attention? Think of how many commercials you hear on the radio that just doesn't command the listener's attention. Okay, it doesn't command my attention. Now make sure that your ad isn't one of them. Just think of it this way. The most important part of a print ad is the headline. In a radio commercial, the opening line is the headline. Sin number 2, did you fail to appeal to the listener's self-interest? The listener doesn't care about the advertiser, okay? That's just a fact. The listener cares about what the advertiser can do for them. Most copywriters make the mistake of writing about the advertiser instead of about the potential customer. Make sure that you've identified a need or a problem that will be filled or solved by the advertiser. The third sin, did you fail to paint a picture? If you think about it, radio is a very visual medium. Listeners convert the sound of your ad into a mental picture that can inspire and motivate them to act upon your words. Choose those words very carefully to paint a picture that will get results for your client. Sin number 4, were you so clever or so creative that you forgot to sell? It happens to the best of us, okay? A good commercial is not one that makes people laugh. It's one that motivates them to act, okay? So call to action. Your message must be clear. Don't bury it in a clever idea, okay? You don't want an ad where someone goes to tell their friend about the funny line that was in the ad, but where they don't remember what was sold. So number 5 there, did you forget to give the listener a reason to act now? As mentioned before, most local radio stations are expecting tangible, measurable results from their campaigns. The copy should reach active customers who are looking for that particular product or service, as well as passive customers who might be in the market soon. So hurry to the sale soon just doesn't cut it. Be creative and find new ways to express the offer. So number 6, did you use cliche-ridden copy? So commercial cliches are in essence useless and a waste of airtime, and they don't communicate anything to listeners, so don't use them. Okay, find a way to say it fresher. It may take a little bit more time, but it's worth it to keep people from tuning out. Some of the common ones to avoid are things like, now is the time. They won't last long. Savings throughout the store. The sale you've been waiting for. Conveniently located. So stay away from things like that, okay? Then sin number 7, did you write too much copy? Avoid this common pitfall by getting in the habit of reading your copy aloud and timing yourself. The trick is to read it in a normal conversational pace, okay? The way that you and I will speak to each other. If it takes you 75 seconds to read it out loud, what makes you think that your production person can do a good job with the same copy in just 60 seconds? Remember, too many words crammed into one fragile minute can be fatal. Again, the average for 30 seconds is 90 words, okay? So try to stick to around that when you're writing an ad for 30 seconds. Or again, simply time yourself when you're done writing the copy, so you can have an idea of how long it is. Step number 8, learn how to sell your ideas and to win support. So now we've come to the point of producing our ad. It's time to share your brilliant ideas with your client, but there are a few things to keep in mind when selling the creative and promoting the unique marketing abilities of your staff and stations. Grab alles vandaag. So step number 8, learn how to sell your ideas and how to win support. It's time for us now to share our brilliant ideas with the client, but there's a few things that we need to keep in mind when selling the creative and when promoting the unique marketing abilities of our staff and our station. Number 1, don't produce a lousy spec spot. Sure, you can hear how great it's going to sound in your head, but the client is going to have a hard time hearing that leap. In other words, don't produce a speculative spot unless you're certain it can sound great. Instead, rather just present the copy and describe the commercial to them. If it's based on an already proven idea, play that commercial as an example of what you would like to accomplish in your ad, okay? So it's a really nice idea to want to make an example for them to listen to, but if you can't produce a great sounding example, don't do it. Number 2, explain your assumptions and manage their expectations. Present the rationale behind your ideas. Explain why you picked that music or that announcer or that approach, because you have the client's goals and expectations in mind. Sell a marketing strategy, not an ad. This might involve the production of a campaign instead of one spot. It's important that your client understands that you're interested in increasing their sales, not just yours. By presenting a complete plan in which creative plays an important part, you become a member of their staff and are perceived as a hardworking player on their team. Use testimonials before and after a sale. Provide stories of satisfied customers. These are most often in print form, but you can also interview advertisers in your studio asking how the campaign or the spot worked. These interviews can be edited with permission into great audio success stories that can be used on sales calls, presentations, or even possibly on air. Number 5, involve production people in sales. This is something that a lot of people makes the mistake of not doing. Everyone benefits by seeing how their other side works. Everyone benefits by seeing how the other side works. Take a production person on a sales call. Get their input and reward productivity. In these days of consolidation, many production people can feel overworked and underappreciated, okay? Perhaps get them something to say thank you. So whether it's vouchers or concert tickets, or simply just a handwritten thank you note, okay? Just say thank you at some point to them. And then step number 9, tips and tricks in technical production. So technically speaking, the days of reel-to-reel and razor blade splicing are gone. Today's computers and audio programs are helping production directors create more spots in a shorter time with sound effects that would be virtually impossible a few years ago. However, faster is not necessarily better, and production director Robert Diaz offers a couple of tips. Number 1 there, he says don't skimp on tools. A great read full of emotion and enthusiasm can become lousy with a bad microphone. The good thing is that most radio stations have decent equipment because the quality of sound is the key aspect to being on the air. Number 2, musical choices. It's important to have a production library that's got a variety of choices, okay? In order to create great radio commercials. It helps to have music that sounds similar to songs that are already made. So things like, sound alike music can keep you out of trouble when you have that client who wants to use Yellow Submarine as their theme song, for instance. Also, a library of sound effects will be handy when trying to create the right atmosphere. Keep in mind that single royalty-free tracks can now be downloaded over the internet, and all those production music files can be stored on a hard drive for easy access. Number 3, stay focused. Finally, remember to encourage production people to stay focused and to really understand what you want to convey. If they don't understand the effect you're trying to listen out for, if they don't understand the effect that you're listening for, or the message you want to convey, the commercial or the campaign will go nowhere. Okay? Communication is essential. The last step, step number 10, take pride in your work and sell competitively. Okay, so by now you've put in the time researching your client, you've learned about his or her needs, you've determined the message that needs to be expressed in the commercial and thought of the perfect way to do it. So now it's time to present your masterpiece. Why not present it in that way to the client? Someone once said that a sale is a transfer of ideas. Present your idea in an exciting way and get the client excited about the sale. Position it as an answer to the client's problems or their goals. Remember, the creative work that you've done can literally determine the success of an account and reinforce your relationship with the client. So there's a lot that we've gone through now, okay? I'm aware of that. And no one's ever said that it's going to be easy. This is something that we already know. The challenges of developing, of writing and producing great creative are full and are many, but you can do it, okay? So focus on one step at a time. There's no doubt that the key to successful creative, just remember that the key to a successful creative is you doing your homework, and we're here to assist you, okay? I'm here to help you. So let's very briefly recap what we've spoken about, okay? So firstly, we looked at the Radio Advertising Bureau, so RAB, their guide to writing great radio copy. And the 10 steps were as follows. Step 1, find out what your client wants. Step 2, ask the correct questions. Step number 3, help position your client. This means finding out what their perceived strengths are. Number 4, get it all together. And here we refer to the various style categories of different ads. Okay, you get straightforward, music, slice of life, humor, and testimonials. Then number 5, how to overcome writer's block. And there are quite a few ways of doing this. First and foremost, by using sound effects and by brainstorming ideas. Number 6, get down to basics. So here we looked at a couple of copywriting tips, which included the goals, your elements, your approach, your opening to the ad, simplicity, clarity, using active language, being credible, doing product mentions, your editing work, and lastly, group effort. Number 7, then make sure your masterpiece passes this test. We looked at, here we looked at Copywriting Deadly Sins by Dan O'Day, where sin number 1 was, did you fail to attract the listener's attention? Number 2, did you fail to appeal to the listener's self-interest? Number 3, did you fail to paint a picture? Number 4, were you so clever or so creative that you forgot to sell? Number 5, did you forget to give the listener a reason to act now? And number 6, did you use cliché-ridden copy? Lastly, number 7, did you write too much copy? Then we looked at number 8, learn how to sell your ideas and win support. And here we said, don't use a lousy spec spot, so don't use a lousy example. Explain your assumptions and manage your expectations. Sell a marketing strategy, not an ad. Use testimonials before and after a sale. Involve production people in sales. Step 9, tips and tricks in technical production. Don't skimp on your tools. Keep your musical choices in mind. And number 3 there, stay focused. And then our last step is take pride in your work and sell competitively. And that brings us to the end of this lecture. Next, in buying, selling, and executing airtime, we'll talk about how our job as commercial radio people is to make great radio that solves clients' problems. And after that, we're going to look at inventory, scheduling, and traffic, as well as adding value for your client. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye for now until next time. Bye.